inspiring, educating, and offering hope for families like yours. This is the Family Healing Room with Dr. Sonia Sutherland, a licensed counselor for 21 years and now a professor of counseling. Dr. Sonia wants you to know that your family can be stronger, your marriage can be peaceful and loving, and that safe, open, and enjoyable relationships with your sons or daughters is possible. And now, here's today's show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Family Healing Room. I'm glad that you're joining us today. I'm here today with Tracy and Kelsey Carrasquillo. And as you know, on the Family Healing Room, we are wanting to ensure that we provide tools for you and your family to strengthen your relationships and help you see success. I want to ask Tracy and Kelsey to introduce themselves. Tracy, why don't you start?
Okay. Well, my name is Tracy Carrasquillo. I'm Kelsey's mom. I also have a son, Brendan, and I've been a single mom for 20 years this year. And it has defined who I am, really, for the last 20 years. I also do new home sales. That's what my occupation is. And so I want to introduce you to my daughter, Kelsey, and I'll let her talk about herself.
I'm Kelsey. I am a graduate student at Richmond Graduate University studying mental health and clinical counseling. I'm in my final year, so I'm doing my internship and sitting with clients, and I'm newly engaged, so that's a fun fact.
Well, that's awesome. Congratulations on both being in an internship, which means you're almost done. You can see the finish line and being engaged at the same time. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Great news.
Thank you.
Lots of good stuff going on.
It's a good season.
A busy season.
Yeah. Yes.
That's awesome. Well, then, in the midst of this busy season, tell me why you said yes to being interviewed for the Family Healing Room.
I think for me, I have realized as embarking on engagement and walking into new and navigating new family dynamics, I'm just really appreciative for our family and how we've done things and how we've just built this really great family relationship. So I think in any way that we can help share what's worked for us, what was helpful for us in navigating mother-daughter relationships, even as I'm older and I live at home right now, navigating that and doing that well. If we can help share anything, that for me is something that I would love to help other people with.
Yeah, and for me, it really was about just sharing what we've done and what we've learned through this process. It has not always been easy, but I do have friends that have struggled with their relationships, especially mother-daughters. And I feel like the relationship that we have has been really it's a huge blessing in my life. And I often say she's my best friend because we've come to a point where we are mother-daughter, but we have also become best friends. And that's how it was with my mom and I. Well, my mom was alive. So I'm just very grateful for that. And it's not been easy, but it has been wonderful.
Yeah, and as you talk, it is exciting for me to interview because I'm a single mom as well. And so whenever I get to talk to other single moms and their daughters and really try to delve into what you've done to make it so, I'm always very excited to do that. So I guess what's the first family principle then that you would point to that you feel has helped your mother-daughter relationship be strong?
For us, when we were talking about this, we both really quickly decided on communication and talking things out. It was really early in our relationship. We both decided at some point or another that we wanted to have a close relationship and trying to figure out what that looked like. And my mom actually moved to Israel for 2 years and lived there, and navigating that and how I felt as her daughter, her leaving me, trying to navigate that and navigate healthy communication was really hard for us. But I believe that it's part of the reason why our relationship is where it is today, because we we decided in that moment we would rather hash it out and maybe say some things that aren't pretty and aren't all sugar coated, and have it be honest and truthful, our real emotions, and bring that to each other, and just have it be a safe place for each other.
Yeah, I really feel like me leaving and going to Israel, and I went there to be a missionary, and Kelsey was already in her third year of college, and I just felt that call of God on my life to go to Israel, and it was a very hard decision. But through that, my church offered to send us to counseling because we were both struggling with it. She was so angry with me for going, and I felt guilty, but I felt like I didn't have a choice. So through that, we did start going to counseling. And really, that was the beginning of our journey, learning how to communicate, learning how to hear the hard things and deal with those hard things. And allowing her the freedom to be able to say, I'm really mad, Mom. And, and then having to understand and sit where she is and understand what she was going through. And then also being able to explain to her why I felt like I had to do this. And so I really felt like, and that was in 2013. And that really was the beginning of our journey to becoming best friends, I feel like.
So you said at the very beginning that you were intentional about deciding the type of relationship that you had. So that at the point where you did go to Israel, that was probably a driving force for wanting to make sure that you were able to communicate about that. Talk about early on how you came to that decision to be intentional about wanting to be best friends, wanting to be able to communicate better. What was that process like when Kelsey was a child?
Well, when she was a child, I mean, first and foremost, I was her mother, and I had to, because I was a single mom, I had to be the disciplinarian, and I really wasn't her friend. And she did not feel like I was her friend at all. And so I don't think that friendship side of it came until later on in life. And when she was, getting ready to graduate high school and going into college, and because of my relationship with my mom, I wanted that kind of relationship with Kelsey. And I'm not so sure that she wanted that all the time, but I think that as she went through her struggles at the university, and had some challenges there, I think that was really a turning point for the place where we came to, where we said, we love each other and we are mother and daughter, but we also want to be best friends and have that friendship and be able to work towards that.
So Kelsey, talk a little bit about that, that transition, not really wanting to, I guess, or not having the same goals as your mom initially around your relationship, and then how that changed. What was that like for you as a young girl?
Yeah, I think part of me knew I wanted it because I had seen how she had grown up with her mom, and her mom was amazing, and they would talk every morning, and I remember seeing that and being like, that's so cool and so unique, that dynamic between a mother and daughter where they want to talk all the time, and they're not just, it's not obligatory, it's friendship, and it's sharing life together. And I think for me, it was when I went to college and, did the whole independent thing and kind of just strayed from the way that my mom had raised me. And we just kind of had this moment where she told me, she said, I think that you're settling for less than what you should be and who God created you to be. And I love you either way. I love you whether you choose this route, or I love you whether you choose the route God has for you. That is not going to change for me, but I know God has more for you, and I want more for you. And I think for me, that was kind of a turning point, because it was like, oh, you're not just my mom anymore, because I realized then, like, you have no, I don't want to say no say, but I'm an adult, she can't make me change my life. She can't make me do anything. And so it was at that point that I realized, oh no, this is from a friend perspective, like and a mother, but she loves me enough that she's going to let me choose my path, whether or not she likes it. And that for me was a shift of, she has my best interests at heart. And this is someone who's modeled for me, what it means to be a good, godly woman, and what it means to be a good mother and things like that. And why wouldn't I want to have a friendship and a close relationship with her?
So Kelsey, it sounds like as you were going through this process in college, mm-hmm. what you heard from your mother was a respect for the choices that you were in front of you, mm-hmm. that you could make. Mm-hmm. That she wasn't forcing you into one or the other based on what she wanted, but she was offering you a perspective, but that also allowed you to choose for yourself what you wanted to do.
Yeah, very much so. And it came back to that communication thing where she could have just, let it go and not communicated that to me, her hopes for me, her love for me, what she wanted for me. But there was that, the urgency or the, just, the feeling of like, no, communication, we need to talk about this. And I think that if she hadn't, my life would look different. Our relationship would probably look completely different. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
So Tracy, how did you get to the point where it sounds like you let go a little bit?
Yeah, I had to let go a lot because really everything that I had, all the hopes and dreams that I had for her looked like to me they were being just washed away because of the choices that she was making. But for me, it was just, well, what's more important? Is it to have my way, or is it to have my daughter in my life? And I knew that to have my daughter in my life was the most important thing. And so I had to be able to put my hopes and dreams aside because, like she said, she was an adult and she had to make her own choices at that point. Whether I liked those choices or not, I had to let her make those choices and continue to love her. And even if she made choices that I wasn't fond of.
And even as you allowed her to make choices that you weren't fond of, you remained honest with her just about how you felt or what your desire was for her?
Yeah, desires, how I felt, what God wanted for her, the life that I reminded her of some of the things that dreams that she had when she was a sophomore in high school, and how the Lord had spoken to her during that time, and just reminding her of those things and just saying, I want the best for you and God wants the best for you. And I think you're making choices that are not the best for you. And so eventually she made some decisions or actually we made decisions jointly about her coming home because, she was at a private school and it was a lot of money. And so we talked about it and she decided to come home, and she moved back in, and we just went from there. And there were times where it wasn't easy for either one of us because I would think about my hopes and dreams for her, and I would have to let those go all over again. So it was this process. It was like a period of mourning of what we had talked about all these years and what it looked like, and now it wasn't looking like that anymore.
Kelsey, what's it like to hear your mom talk about that period of time?
We actually talk about this a lot. I don't know if it's because of the counseling program or just because we do communicate so much. We reflect back on that time a lot, and how it was like a pivotal moment in my life, and how even in that, like, God, God made a way and brought me exactly where I was supposed to be, because I came home. I was home for a little bit, and then I went to UGA and she went to
Israel.
And so even in that, seeing how like the timing was so perfect and how everything fell together, whereas before we had both been fighting so hard to get me to that other university, and it felt like everything was fighting against us.
Mm-hmm.
And we look back and we're like, wow, we wish we would have just looked at it and been like, why is this so difficult? Maybe we shouldn't be fighting so hard for this. So we talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
And so we are both, I feel like, very, we know how we both felt very like deeply through that process.
Yeah. It was a very painful time for both of us. And, but it really did. It really was now I can say I'm grateful for it, because really she wouldn't be where she is today, and she wouldn't be the person that she is today if we hadn't been through that and been able to work through things and talk through things and just be able to process through together. And both of us were in pain, and we just ended up talking it through together. And I think that going through the pain together and sharing our feelings with each other helped us to understand each other better, and also helped us to get over that hurdle of the pain of that situation or that time. It wasn't a situation, it was just a period of time.
How did counseling help during that period?
So counseling happened right before she went to Israel, and like she said, I was very angry that she was leaving, because I had expectations of her as a mother that leaving and moving to another country was not a part of those expectations for me. So, and I was just very angry and just being really mean, and and so we decided.
Kelsey, you don't look like you have a mean bone in your body.
Oh, I do. I can be very, very mean. And it was it was like the pain on the inside. And for me, it was like, maybe if I like dirty this relationship, it won't be so painful when she leaves. And so, it was very much like intentional. Like, I'm going to be a bitch to you, so when you leave, I don't miss you. And
I'm thinking that didn't really work.
It did not. And thus going to counseling, because I think she was about ready to kill me.
No, I really wasn't. And I totally understood her pain, because I was feeling that same pain of being separated from her. And actually, going to the counselor was huge for us, just because, and it was a time where we learned a lot about how divorce had affected both of us, things that we didn't understand. What happens when a family goes through divorce, and how it affects the kids, and how they change roles, and even like my son became like the man of the house, and it just changed the dynamics. And going through that counseling allowed us to see, I mean, there were some really unhealthy things in all three of us relationship. And so that really helped us to be able to identify some of those areas and work through that, and to see things more clearly, and be able to work past the pain and understand that that this was something that was going to happen, but it didn't mean that I loved her any less. It didn't mean that I was looking to run away from her. And, because her dad left, there was a feeling of abandonment. And me leaving was just creating that sense of abandonment all over again.
Yeah.
And so working through her feelings, and of course, then for me, it was a loss of family, friends, job, everything. So it was a good time of counseling, working through all of that.
That's good. The benefits of counseling can't be overstated in any way. And so I'm glad that was a really helpful period or intervention for you. Let's talk a little bit now about this next family principle that you have identified. The first was talking it out, communication. What was the next one?
Ours is we communicate love to each other. We say, I love you. We show each other we love each other. And I didn't really realize this was weird until my fiance now kind of came into our family dynamics, and he was like, yeah, my family's not like your family. Like every time you guys like enter or leave a room, okay, I love you. And you over communicate your love for each other. Not in a bad way, but he was just like, it's not that way at all for me.
Not enter or leave a room, enter or leave like the house.
Yeah.
So whenever we leave, we will say, love you, have a great day, or love you, see you later, or something like that. And that was totally foreign to him. And it was very normal for me because that's how I grew up with my mom and with my dad. And that was just a very normal thing. And hugging each other is a normal thing. And
like kissing each other whenever we leave.
Yeah.
Like just overtly loving.
Showing affection.
Maybe that's it too. Because, I mean, his family loves each other, but we just are overtly affectionate. And it's, I think it's just a big contrast. And so I think for us, why that's been so important is because me and my brother will do sibling dates, and we'll talk about how we've never questioned if we were loved by our mom just because of how we were raised. We just knew, like, that was the unspoken, guaranteed we are loved by her.
Sounds like you experienced some unconditional love throughout your life. Didn't matter what was going on, didn't matter if mom loved what you were doing or didn't love what you were doing. You still felt that unconditional love as an undercurrent.
Yeah, definitely. That was definitely something that she modeled for us very well. Yeah.
Tracy, you talk a lot. You've said it multiple times in our conversation that these are things that you learned in your relationship with your own mother.
Yeah.
And so you are walking out generational principles, it sounds like.
Exactly. Yeah, I have. And I'm so grateful that I have, because my mom was very loving. And the funny thing is my mom actually grew up in an orphanage, and she had 5 sisters. And during World War II, her father went to go fight the war, and her mom couldn't take care of the 5 girls, so she left them at an orphanage. And so my mom grew up in an orphanage, but she was just an amazing mom. And she loved, there's four of us, and she just loved us so well. And she was kind, she was calm, and just very affectionate, and always loved us kids, always. loved us physically, emotionally. She spoke about it. She showed it through the way that she raised us. And yeah, she just did. And even with the grandkids, her grandkids, my kids, and the other in our family, they all talk about her to this day on how wonderful she was.
You used some very telling descriptors. You said she was kind, and she was calm. And so as I listen to you use those adjectives to describe her, it's almost like you're painting a picture of her persona, of how she existed in the room, in the spaces that you were in with her. And that can be so instrumental in creating the environment that feels loving, that feels safe, right? What other descriptors can you point to that could help folks listening really begin to identify, how do I really want to be in relationship with my loved ones in order for all of this to really show itself?
I think, for you, I think that's a good question for you to answer, because I'm certainly not calm. I'm I'm a more type A personality. So yeah.
I mean, I think we both are very type A. I think for me, it is that like warmness. And I'm not quite sure how you develop a skill like that, but being warm, being patient. That was one thing she definitely was. She was so patient with all of us.
What did patience look like? Describe that.
Yeah, so for her, whenever we'd have all the cousins together, and there's all, the sibling dynamics, and we would just bicker, and something that would push our mom's buttons, and she would, like, stop it. It was like my grandmother had an infinite amount of patience, and she would just say things. I think that too is how she would just speak to us. She had this tone and this like presence of just being just that calm and safeness. And so she would always come towards you with like empathy and love, and where it could make anybody get angry or whatever, she would just, her goal was to always just kind of be even for you, so you knew that she was going to be that safe place.
Yeah. And laughter is huge. It was something that we grew up with, a lot of laughter. And my home was not perfect because my dad was abusive, but my mom countered that abuse. And we learned to laugh as a family. And I think, with my kids, we learned to laugh. My son would always know how to get me to laugh. When I was mad, he'd find a way to make me laugh and just, break it down. And so, yeah, laughter was a big thing.
Not only do you not have to be perfect in order to have a strong relationship, you can have strong relationships even coming out of traumatic backgrounds, right?
Yeah.
And some of the ways to do that involves increasing just your own awareness of yourself and how you impact other people and how you want to impact other people, and looking at the discrepancy between that and how you then move the needle in one direction away from another. Would you say that's true?
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
Because even my kids can tell you that I became a different person, and a person for the better. And really it happened with my faith. And when I found my faith, I became a different person. I became very self-aware of who I am, my failings. But I made a decision early on, that my kids were my priority. And as a single parent, I had to make that decision to make sure that they were my priority. And so, yeah, there was a big 180 change in me.
Mm-hmm.
And that came out of self-awareness
Mm-hmm.
and learning to, and I can tell you prior to that, I wasn't self-aware at all. And just being around people who modeled that for me, especially in my church, really helped me to change and to be a better parent and a better person.
Yeah, I think self-awareness goes a really far way, you know, because when you think, going back to what my mom was talking about and her expectations, for me, when you can see as a parent or you can see as a child, these are my expectations for them. And that's a me thing. That's not even really a them thing. And when you can start having that self-awareness of, this is something I'm going to need to walk through because I can't put that on her. She's her own human being with her own ability to make decisions and her own calling from God and path that she needs to walk, and the same for me. And so that is a huge part of it, is accepting that and not putting my expectations or my desires above somebody else's, what they want for themselves. Yeah. And I think self-awareness is a huge part of that.
Yeah, I agree.
Awesome. So as we kind of wrap up, I guess, what's one thing that you would want to communicate from the perspective of a daughter, Kelsey, to other daughters out there who are struggling in their relationship with their mom? What's one thing that you would say to them is just really important, that has been helpful for you?
I think there is a tension of wanting to be, as a daughter, wanting to be the person that your parents always want you to be, and then kind of finding your own identity and navigating the two, and understanding that, you know, to find who you are is to not, even if that looks different than what your parents maybe have for you, is not it's not disrespect, it's not wrong, it's part of the process of you becoming your own person. And you can love your parents and respect your parents while also stepping into the shoes of what it means for you to be your own person. And I think for me, having that freedom to do that, for her to allow me to be that person, is really what has created this great relationship, but has also created in me like a confidence in myself, because I know I'm not just who my mom wanted me to be, or my dad, or anybody. Like I got to choose who I am today, and I'm very proud of who that is. So I think that would definitely be my advice, is to just kind of seek out your own self-identity, and to know that that's not to forsake your parents, but it's just part of life and that growing process.
And so it sounds like you would then say to mothers to give your daughter space to actually do that.
Yeah. And to know, you know, I'm not a parent, so I can't understand how difficult that must be when you do just want the world for them. But, you know, to kind of just hold them with open hands, and knowing that, you know, as a parent, you've instilled in them the best that you can, and you have to trust that they are going to hold to what you've instilled in them.
All right. And Tracy, what would you say to moms out there who are struggling in relationship with their daughters? What do you think they just really need to know from your perspective to help them?
I think, just to reiterate what Kelsey said, to hold them loosely doesn't mean you don't love them, and to allow them to become the person that they want to be, regardless if it's what you want them to be or not to be, because they are their own person. They have their own destiny. They have their own lives to live. And that was the hardest thing for me, was to be able to just let go and say, you know what, I want my daughter in my life, and I am just going to have to let go of my desires for her and let her make her own choices. And granted, you don't do that when they're 15 or 16 years old. You do that at a point in their lives when really you should be, when they're 18 years old, they're going out on their own, they're doing their own thing, whether they're going to college or they're going to go to work. At that point, I have done everything I could possibly do. And it's really not up to me at that point. So I better just open my hands and let go and just love, regardless. Yeah.
That's a huge part of it, to love regardless.
That unconditional love. Sounds like too, Tracy, that you also had to let go of wanting to fix any mistakes that Kelsey found herself in.
Yeah, I did. I did. I had to let her accept and sometimes suffer the consequences of her choices. And that is one of the hardest things to do, because you want to fix it, you want to make it better, and you know you can't. You just have to let it go. And yeah, that was a really painful process for me, to be able to step back and watch. And I was watching my hopes and dreams for her disappear, and not all of them, but just in certain things. And but now I look at her and I'm so proud of her. And I've watched her in the last 2 years just make really good decisions. I've seen her become a woman that more than I ever could have expected her to be. I mean, my expectations of her are nothing compared to what she's been able to do as the person that she is. I mean, and you know, she's made her own way, and she's made some really good choices. She's made some hard choices, and I don't think that my expectations, you know, my expectations were here, and she has come up here and far exceeded anything that I expected.
Excellent. That is wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, thank you for joining me on the Family Healing Room. I do have a question, one last question. That's a beautiful tapestry behind you. Where did you get that?
Well, this was the one gift that I bought myself when I left Israel. It's probably takes up about over half of this wall, and it was handmade over there. And so, yeah, I got it as a gift to myself when I left Israel.
That's beautiful. I'm so glad you decided to do this recording right in front of that. It's just a gorgeous backdrop.
Thanks.
So thank you again for joining me on the Family Healing Room. I am sure that as mothers and daughters hear your story, they will be encouraged. They will learn some things that can be helpful to them. So I appreciate your being willing to just be open, be transparent, and to share your story with me.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thanks.
thank you.
Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Sutherland. Thanks for listening today, and I hope you'll join us again at this same time next week. If this information has been helpful, like us and share on Facebook at Legacy Changers Worldwide. You can also find other shows and resources to strengthen your mental health and family wellness at www.legacychangersworldwide.com and by subscribing to Dr. Sonia Sutherland on YouTube. I'm in your corner and always hoping the best for you. I'll see you next week.